We're currently going through the skills that make a difference academically. The skills that help you bring your talent out into life. And yesterday, or like the last episode, we talked about self-regulation. Like the director, the conductor of the orchestra that, helps and real time helping the orchestra play now. But planning and productivity, which is the one we're going to talk about now, that is aimed more at the long term. So one thing that came to mind when I was thinking about this is that I've done American Kenpo Karate, which is a form of karate which is actually pretty cognitively designed. A lot of martial arts have long traditions, and Senior Grandmaster Ed Barker actually is the one who thought all of this out, and he really designed it based on a lot of different forms of martial arts. But he really came in from an analytical mindset. And one of the things is that a lot of movements are very complicated. There's a lot of stuff happening at the same time. And that makes it really, it looks really complicated and really kind of like baffles people. But one quote that I really have kept to heart by Ed Barker was, complexity is compound simplicity. So when something is complex, we're doing like 4 or 5 different moves at the same time. There's still 5 different movements. If I'm moving 2 hands at the same time, I can first isolate one hand and then isolate the other hand, and then I can do both at the same time. And this is compound simplicity. Multiple simple things together bring a complex end result. And that, I think, is what planning and productivity and organization is all about. It's breaking down complexity, breaking down bigger things that are complex and maybe overwhelming as a whole, and chunking them down into smaller and simpler tasks. And David Allen wrote a book, Getting Things Done, and he came up with a metaphor of really switching between your thinking hat and your doing hat. Your thinking hat is designing what to do, and then your doing hat goes and execute it. So planning and organization and productivity is about putting on the thinking hat. And then, when you come to the doing hat, then we get to, the self-regulation bit. So it's a really interesting combination of using and improving on, self-regulation. Because sometimes the answer is just power through. You need to do this, you need to focus for an hour and just do it. At the same time, you also need to be smart about it. If my plan to be successful depends on me, spending 6 days in a row, 12 hours a day, memorizing stuff, then I know this will not work, because there is no way that I can get my brain in a shape where it will be effective 6 days in a row for 12 hours a day. So I need to schedule it out differently. That if I need to do like 50 hours of memorization, then I need to space it out over maybe even 5 weeks. So that's planning and organizing, seeing what resources you have, including your own focus, including your own abilities, and then using them as effectively to get the end result. So one we talked about a little bit yesterday was task initiation and making sure you get started with what you're doing. But it helps in that if you prepare it properly. If you always put your stuff in the same place, you don't have to look for it all the time. Before you start, I gave math as an example. Do your math homework. You actually have a list. Get my math book, get my workbook, get my ruler, get my pen, make sure my pencils are sharpened. And then when I start, I actually get the list and I go through it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I have everything and then I start. Then I'll probably start in 30 seconds. Plus it will not tax my brain as much to have to think about all these things. So you can use as much cognitive energy on that as possible. But, another one is time management. Being able to estimate how long something will take and then actually allotting and scheduling enough time and time blocks to be able to do that. So first I need to be realistic about this is going to take 2 hours, and then I need to find a slot where I can have 2 hours to actually do it and decide, do I do this best in the evening or in the morning? And what do I prioritize? Am I going to spend as much time on every single item, or are 1 or 2 things more important than the others? So all of these things go into planning and organization. An additional important skill in planning and productivity is flexibility. So you have to create a plan, but you also have to be able to, if the world changes, if something changes, if I oversleep or something, then I can adjust my plan to the new reality, because now I have a new amount of time or a new amount of energy. So really be smart about that. So the entire thing is about organization and chunking, like how to take this big project that's like 20 items long and breaking it down and making sure that it's broken down into pieces of, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 minutes. And then I can start, checking them off one at a time. And especially with larger projects, like if you, do a thesis or you have to do like this big project that's going to take you 80 hours, it's really important to chunk it down into things where you can be successful every day. Because if you have a project of 80 hours, it takes 5 weeks. And every day you get up and you start working, you used to work really hard for 4 hours. And then you're like, is it done? No, it's still not done because it's going to take at least 20 days of that. You're probably going to be discouraged. Well, if you say, okay, I need to do 80 hours, so I'm going to create, 30 chunks of about, 2.5, 3 hours. And then every day I can, wonder, did I do my 2.5 hours today? And then I was successful. So this is really about using that metacognitive part of your brain to really think about how to approach things. This is a crucial task for academic success. And the further you get along in education, the more important it becomes. So reflect on this. How does this work for you? How are your planning and productivity skills? Are you a role model or is this one of your big challenges? And how about your kid? Is he or she a role model? Do they have it nailed down? Are they planned and organized? Or is this a skill that they could learn and that you could work on? So curious to hear your thoughts. Do share them, in the comments or on social media. I'd love to hear from you.